everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. Today doing the breakdown video for Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson as they collide to unify super featherweight championships at 130 pounds on April 30th. That's going to be the main event of an ESPN card. Big time matchup right here between these two guys. You have the undefeated Valdez, number one technically right now at 130 pounds based on his resume. The WBC champion, knocked out the previous number one Miguel Berchelt last year, is taking on the undefeated Shakur Stevenson, the WBO champion, who's coming in hot. I mean, he is coming off that dominant performance against Jamel Herring. So, as I normally do, well, let's discuss the fight for a second. So, this fight is huge. It's basically going to determine, not basically, it is going to determine the number one super featherweight in the world. These two guys are respectively numbers 1 and 2 right now. Without question, Valdez is number 1 and Stevenson is number 2, and the winner is going to be number 1, is going to be the number 1 super featherweight in the world. Stevenson coming in, I'm sorry, let me backtrack for a second. Both of these guys are coming in hot, and they got Stevenson the betting favorite right now. Stylistically, that's what people think. But Valdez is hungry. Both these guys want this fight. They both made this fight happen. I'm very happy that they made this happen. That Valdez didn't go running again from Stevenson like he did at 126 pounds. I think he was pretty much forced into making this fight. He had to do it, or people were going to call him the Ducker. I think when he first called out Stevenson last year, when he knocked out Miguel Berchelt, I believe that led to, hey, you pretty much have no choice but to fight him now. So now the fight is on, unifying titles to determine the number 1 super featherweight in the world at 130. Can't wait to see it. So as I do with my breakdown videos all the time, we start with the favorite, and then we move to the underdog, and we ask the same 4 questions well, first I talk about what they've done coming into the fight. Then I ask the same 4 questions that I always ask, and then I ask for both, what is it better for boxing if one or the other wins? And then at the end of the video, I give my final prediction. This is a full breakdown. Let's start with the favorite, the undefeated WBO champion, Shakur Stevenson. Stevenson is coming in the betting favorite into this fight. He's undefeated. He's a very good southpaw and can box extremely well. I have already pegged him. I did that a couple years ago, that this guy is going to be the future pound-for-pound king of boxing. He's that good. This is going to be the biggest fight of Stevenson's career, hands down. He's heading in undefeated. He's hungry. He's young. And he's coming off of his career best win, a dominant 10th round TKO of Jamel Herring, who he systematically broke down and beat up. And I'm sorry, but Stevenson was fucking mean in that fight. He really beat up Jamel Herring and just continuously beat him to the punch. Stylistically, it was a bad matchup. I really likened that fight to when Lara fought Austin Trout. I thought it was a very similar fight in terms of styles, and I was really looking forward to it. Or when Chad Dawson fought Antonio Tarver. I really looked at that fight as a bad matchup for Tarver. For Trout, I looked at it as a bad matchup because you're basically facing a younger, faster, better version of yourself kind of deal. And, that's basically what happened. And Stevenson just completely dominated Jamel Herring. Outside of that, he has a dominant performance over Joet Gonzalez, Christopher Diaz. Those are probably the biggest wins prior to the win over Herring, and they've all happened in the last couple of years. And Stevenson has to his credit that Oscar Valdez did run from him at 126 pounds. He had, Stevenson was Valdez's mandatory. Valdez decided to move up to 130. Now, there's no moving. Stevenson is hungry. He's ready to go. He wants to take over not just this division, but boxing in general. And this is a big fight for him, and he's definitely ready for the fight. Now, what kind of style does Stevenson need to have to defeat Oscar Valdez? And it's basically his basic style of boxing. He has a 1.5 inch height advantage, and he has a 2 inch reach advantage. He needs to use those. He needs to stand in there and let Valdez come to him. Plain and simple. Let him come to him, move side to side, box, and dominate Valdez. And he needs to land the counter punches. When Valdez decides to unload, he needs to hit him. He needs to hit him before Valdez comes inside. He needs to use the jab and throw from the angles. And definitely doesn't need to get into a firefight, but you know what? That's not Stevenson's style anyways. So you know what? He might do that and mix it in and out, but Stevenson just needs to box and break down Oscar Valdez and, you know, work the body and move to the head as he does, and he will be very successful in my opinion. Now, can Shakur Stevenson defeat Valdez by knockout? And you know what? I think he can. I don't think Stevenson possesses that one-punch power, but I think if he fully breaks down a fighter, and the fact that his timing is impeccable. Boxing is all about timing. I've said it for years and years and years. If you throw a perfectly timed punch and land it, then you can knock anybody out. With little power, with no power, or with monster power, that can happen. Stevenson has the kind of power to perfectly time Oscar Valdez, and stylistically, I think if he uses his power, his height, his reach advantage, his height and reach advantage and his timing, I definitely think he could land big shots after big shots and break down Valdez and stop him before the final bell. Can Stevenson win a decision? I think if anybody wins a decision, it's going to be Stevenson. I think he can win a blowout decision too. I absolutely believe he can win a decision. Now, what does this fight mean for Shakur Stevenson? It means the world. A win here would be monstrous for Shakur Stevenson. He becomes a unified champion, he becomes #1 in the division, and he really makes a claim for pound. And after this, he can move up to lightweight and join that very deep mix at lightweight, and possibly set up a big fight with Vasily Lomachenko that's already been discussed at 135 pounds. So, that could come as early as next year. So Shakur Stevenson, the world is his oyster. A win is huge if he pulls off this win, and it's the biggest of his career for sure. Now, what does it mean for Stevenson if he loses? It would be a big setback, depending on how he loses as well. I don't see many people thinking that he's going to lose a decision. If he gets outworked and loses a decision, people are going to question how talented and good he really is. If he gets caught and loses by a knockout, depending on how he gets knocked out, if he gets his ass whipped like Burchelt did, one-sided, people are going to question how good he is. If he's winning or it's a close fight and he gets caught, they're just going to question his chin maybe at that point. But, to lose to the top guy in the division in Valdez probably wouldn't hurt him too bad. It'd be a setback. But at this point right now, given the projection that people have of Stevenson, it would really hurt him in my opinion. Now, let's move over to the undefeated WBC champion, the underdog coming into this fight, Oscar Valdez. Valdez heading in, even though he's the underdog, he's the #1 fighter at 130 based on resume, based on who he defeated to get there. Oscar Valdez coming in, he defeated Miguel Burchelt last year in one of the biggest upsets of the year. He came in a big underdog, but dominated the action from start to finish, really broke him down, and brutally knocked out Miguel Burchelt. That has come into question due to the positive doping test that he had for his fight against Robson Conceição. And he was allowed to hold on to his belt. He was allowed to fight still, and he walked away with a controversial decision in that one, a fight that a lot of people, myself included, didn't feel like he deserved to win. And so that really kind of took a little steam off of Valdez, but still, he's a #1 fighter. He's a WBC champion, and this fight is a fight that he had to make. Stevenson, in my opinion, Valdez, in my opinion, is hungry. I think he believes in himself. I think he possesses, with his trainer, Eddie Reynoso, he possesses an answer to Stevenson's style. He's coming in, though, an underdog, across the board, and you know what? He's he's used to that. He came in against Miguel Berchelt, a big underdog, and Berchelt was the number 1 guy in the division. Nobody thought, myself included, that Valdez was going to compete with Berchelt, and he dominated Berchelt. So if that was a legit win with no doping or anything extra in it, I know stylistically this is a whole different opponent. Stevenson and Berchelt, totally different styles. Stevenson's a southpaw, Berchelt's an orthodox fighter. But I'm saying the role, the attitude, Valdez has been here before. He knows what it is. He knows people are doubting him. And I think he's going to come in and give it his best effort to beat Shakur Stevenson. I believe he's hungry, and I think he wants this one. I think he could have weaseled himself out of the fight if he really didn't want to fight Shakur Stevenson. I think he had to fight him. Pressure put a lot on him. Media, social media, his own mouth, opening his big mouth and saying he wanted to fight after both wins last year over Berchelt and Conceição. He called out the winner of Stevenson and Herring, and Stevenson won. So I think he kind of had no choice if he wanted to stay champion at 130. But again, if he wanted to get out of this fight, he could have. He didn't. He's in it. They're going to go at it. And I think he is probably pissed off that he got paid more, but he's the underdog. So I think he's coming in with a game plan, and he's going to try to pull this win off. And I think he's hungry. So we'll see. Now, what kind of style does Valdez need to have to beat Stevenson? I think Valdez needs to jab his way in. I think he does not need to just go for broke and try to bully Shakur Stevenson. But if Stevenson lays against the ropes, he needs to unload. But he also needs to cut the ring off. When Stevenson decides to move, he needs to step in the direction that he's moving and cut him off and try to beat him to the other direction, and really clamp down on Stevenson being able to move so much, because Stevenson's going to rely on that. But also, when Stevenson stands directly in front of him, he needs to throw his jab, and I think the feint left and the overhand right down the pipe, if he can time it, he might have some success, and he might be able to hurt Stevenson with that. But he also needs a body attack to slow Stevenson down. That needs to be key out the gate, is work the body and move up to the head. Of course, try to land a big shot to the head when available, if available. But you start to slow the guy down, Stevenson down, and give yourself a better shot if you're Oscar Valdez, if you work the body. Land the body shots, slow him down. That's key right here for Oscar Valdez, in my opinion, to win this fight, to have an opportunity to win. Now, can Oscar Valdez win by knockout? I honestly believe the only way to win for Valdez might be by knockout, unless he can just overwhelm Stevenson and really make it a fight and not get outboxed. It's going to be tough, but I think if he lands something big or he can wear down Stevenson, he might be able to win this fight by knockout. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Can he win a decision? I'm not going to rule that one out either. I think he can probably win a decision if he can make it close, depending on their style. But I think it's going to be tough, because Stevenson, it's tough to win rounds against Stevenson. It really is. Jamel Herring got shut out, and Stevenson usually shuts his opponents out, whether it's impressive or not. He shuts his opponents out. So we'll see. Now, what does a win here mean for Oscar Valdez? He throws himself into pound for pound for sure. A win here solidifies himself as the number 1 guy, and he can move up if he wants, or he can take on whoever the hell he wants after that. A win is just over Shakur Stevenson, who is the hot commodity on the rise. If Valdez can pull off the win here and leave no doubt, it just skyrockets him to bigger things. He definitely needs a victory like this, and it'll be the biggest of his career for sure. Now, what does a loss mean for Valdez? The thing is I don't think a lot of people are expecting Oscar Valdez to beat Shakur Stevenson. So a loss isn't going to hurt him as much as you would think, because Stevenson's probably moving up to 135 anyways after this. Valdez stays at 130 and can maybe take the division back over. Depending on how he loses is going to hurt him, of course. But stylistically, it's a bad matchup anyway. So, you know, I really believe that if he loses this fight, it's not going to hurt him as bad. He's still young and got time to really jump back in. It would be his first loss. And again, nobody's expecting him to win anyway. So if he loses, it's kind of like whatever, you know. It's you know, of course, it's going to hurt his pride. It's going to, you know, definitely derail him. But I don't think it's gonna be too devastating. But unless he gets the absolute shit kicked out of him, you know, to where it mentally breaks him down, like he did to Burchell. Now the final two questions here: is it better for boxing if Stevenson wins or if Oscar Valdez wins? And to be honest, I think that's a 50-50 question. I think star power wise, it fits both fighters. Everybody loves a Mexican fighter who mixes it up and can brawl, and like Valdez. And everybody loves a pure boxer with boatloads of talent that can sell tickets and is a pound for pound guy like Stevenson. So I think it's good for boxing either way. I'm really going to call this 50-50 on whether it's better for boxing one way or the other. They're both undefeated fighters. They're both champions. Maybe I would give if I did 51-49, I might say it's better for boxing if Shakur Stevenson wins. But it's close because Valdez has a fan base in the Mexican fan base that is huge for boxing. So I really think it's about a 50-50 question. Now, what is my prediction? Who is going to win this fight between Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson and become the unified champion at 130? And my prediction, no questions asked, I have no doubt that Shakur Stevenson is going to defeat Oscar Valdez and unify the two belts. I like Oscar Valdez. I think he's talented, but I just don't think stylistically he is on the level of one Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson is one of the best fighters in all of boxing. He's very talented, and he can really do a lot, you know, and I really think he's going to be the future pound for pound king. So I can't wait to see Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez. I think it's a good matchup, but I really believe Shakur Stevenson is going to dominate Oscar Valdez in this fight, really pick him apart and be mean. And I think the fight's going to end before the final bell. I think Stevenson is going to stop Oscar Valdez around maybe rounds 9, 10, 11 in that area. Pick him apart, beat him up, and I think he's going to become the unified champion. I do think Oscar Valdez can be a live underdog. I just think stylistically it's a bad matchup, and I don't see him winning. But you never know. Anything can happen in boxing. Again, Valdez came in the underdog before against Burchell, so he knows that role, and he's used to that, and you never know what can happen, as I said. So that's it. That's what I got. That's the breakdown for Stevenson versus Valdez to unify super featherweight titles. I'm really looking forward to the fight. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's Saturday, April 30th on ESPN. If you enjoyed the video, smash the like button, leave a comment, or and subscribe. I really appreciate any support. And this is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.